All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. It's a free-for-all Friday, so hope you will join me. They're always free for everybody. I don't charge nothing, and there's no even ads yet. Hopefully, at some point, I can't deny it. I hope you will have to be subjected to a couple of ads to watch Halitics. That would be if YouTube sticks them in. I won't sell them. I'm not going to go out there and try to get anybody to invest or put ads or sell product on Halitics. I think that compromises the product. But the thing about YouTube is they just shove them in there. So that would be nice for me just to get a little bit of a few shekels for my work, which I don't think I need. I mean, it's not like I'm looking for the money, but it's that it kind of would feel good, right? Like that the program itself is valued by you to the point that I actually can get some money from it, monetize it. So yeah, so subscribe. That's how we get there. Just subscribe now. Definitely am seeing an increase for sure. You can see it too. You can see the numbers go up pretty much every day now. 1 or 2 new subscribers. I don't want to jinx it, but that's been a positive for sure for me. Feels really, really good. Also, more folks in the Facebook group. So yeah, join Halitics on Facebook where we keep the dialogue going. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, especially, most days, but especially on Fridays, is really designed to elicit a dialogue, a discussion for us to try to come up with solutions to these incredibly serious challenges that we face and that we're leaving for our kids and our grandkids. So I want us to try to solve them. It's not about me telling you this or giving you that advice or directing. It's about us working together. And I think that's kind of what, makes this program really unique. I do have a question for you, a question I posted in several places on Facebook, both on pages that I administer or my own homepage on social media, and also on a friend's page, a friend who is an influencer who has a lot of followers, and I really kind of want an answer. So I hope you'll call in. We'll get to that. I'll share it, but right now we will center, as I do on this program, the terrible situation in Gaza. It only gets worse. Every day it gets worse. Now, 56,300. Yesterday's headline from Anadolu Ajansi was it tops 56,200. Now 56,300 amid Israel's genocidal war. I didn't give you the headline from the Al Jazeera network, but it includes the phrase only death for Palestinians desperate for any kind of nutrients, any kind of energy going to the so-called distribution centers where they're greeted by bullets, by machine guns. And apparently Israel has opened up some kind of inquiry to figure out why some people were shot to death at one of the distribution centers at one point. We'll hold our breath to see if there's any consequences. In the end, when people point out, well, look, Israel's looking into it, maybe there'll be some consequences. It kind of so misses the forest for that one tree where Israel sort of kind of didn't do the absolute wrong thing, but it's invariably raining death on these people, these innocent people who've done no harm to anybody. That's what Israel does. That's what it's been doing now. I hate, and look, this is a country I believed in. I thought this was the answer. Us poor Jews always put upon, always victimized, always bullied. Now we have our own country. And what do? We bully others, and not beyond bully. We actually commit the worst crime that anybody could commit on anyone else. And in fact, a crime that was visited upon us on at least one occasion in the Bible. Well, Haman wanted to kill all the Jews. I mean, genocide is not unknown to humanity. And certainly Jewish people are not the only people who have been victimized by this crime. But we also have victimized others. And this is apparently not the first time either if you read your Bible. So take that for what it is. We've got to do what we can as so-called civilized people to stop this atrocity that's happening in real time as we live in. And of course, our government, whether controlled by Democrats or Republicans, whether the president's last name is Biden or Trump, whether the vice president's last name is Harris or Vance, this continues. 240-242-5646. Love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. Per Ari, and yeah, this is absolutely right. It's so sickening. And I didn't have this queued up, but you're right, Ari. Israeli soldiers acknowledged, yes, soldiers are being offered shoot to kill at the people coming for food. They're being directed to, right? They're being said, yeah, go ahead, kill them. Kill them. Do you have a website? No, it's only Facebook. I used to have halginsberg.com, but no longer. I took that down. And Galway says George Galway collects money. I'm not in that. I don't ask people for money. The only thing I would ask, I just don't. I don't think it's right. I'm very fortunate. I'm very privileged. I'm not going to ask people who, most of whom, many of whom anyway, I think probably have less than I do. I'm not going to ask you for money. What I will do, again, is say, hope that YouTube shoves some ads. Now, probably people would rather not have to see the ads. And I guess you can pay YouTube if you don't want to see the ads, but there aren't any, so you don't have to worry about that anyway for now. Yeah, I understand that Israeli soldiers are getting bounties. They're getting bounties to kill women, children, innocent Palestinians, non-combatants. That's where we are now. That's who we support. That's who Trump supports. That's who Biden, Harris supported. The count, let's just do it real quick. Since October 7, 2023, Israel and the U.S. have, and this is just straight out of Anadolu Ajanti. This isn't based on some kind of original research by me, except for just copying and pasting the numbers. But 56,331 Gazans, and that includes 72 people yesterday that Israel killed, and now over 6,000 are at Trump's feet. Trump's hands are bloody to the tune of over 6,000 Gazan. All right, 240-242-5646. 240-242-5646. Wish I could remember my numbers. Yeah, if you want to call and discuss the situation, I'm happy to discuss. I'm not happy about it, but I will certainly discuss what's happening in Gaza. We'll also get to that a little bit as we talk about Mamdani going forward. It's the free-for-all, so a lot of the topics we talked about earlier this week will continue to focus. I do, though, want to just get a conversation going a little bit, or at least report on the Supreme Court decision handed down on in the birthright citizenship case. And I had expected, I have to admit, my initial expectation had been that the court would do the right thing and simply rule no, birthright citizenship is in the Constitution. It is what you have if you're born in this country. You get it. You have the citizenship as an American. You get that if you're born here, period. End of conversation, end of discussion. That is not what the Supreme Court ruled. And I was very upset when I first heard today, this morning, because that's when the decision was handed down, that the Supreme Court had ruled that, or had not ruled specifically that being born in the United States affords you the right of citizenship, full stop. That's what I was hoping. And my original caption for today's program, my subheadline was, or headline, Supremes, meaning Supreme Court obviously, screw Americans born to immigrants more. But I added the sorta because after I read the decision, I didn't read the decision. After I read some of the news snippets and articles, both in New York Times and Politico more closely, I can't quite say they totally screwed immigrants because they didn't, the Supreme Court did not reverse the court cases that have held that you are a citizen if you're born in the United States, right? They didn't say, no, those decisions are wrong. When the president issued an executive order that repealed the provision of birthright citizenship, he didn't actually, the Supreme Court didn't rule that served to obviate, to simply, reverse what's in the Constitution. They didn't say that. They just said that the judges who have ruled, the federal judges who have ruled in various states, that you do have the right to citizenship by virtue. You become a citizen, period, by being born in the United States. Those decisions are still in force, but they don't extend beyond the jurisdiction of the judge who ruled it. So basically, if a federal district judge in New York State rules that under the laws of New York State, of this circuit, right, the Second Circuit, under the laws in my district, if you're born in this district, you are a U.S. citizen. That remains in force, and Trump's order does not negate it. And I think this has happened, right? I think there have been district judges in New York City who have ruled that being born in New York City makes you an American citizen. And that holds. What the decisions of those judges, what the aspect of those decisions that do not hold is that it applies to districts in which the judge doesn't have jurisdiction. So a New York judge, the order of a New York judge that being born in New York City makes you an American citizen doesn't apply to somebody born in Birmingham, Alabama. That's what the Supreme Court held. Now, I think that's a bad decision because this seems to be clearly the law of the land, right? I mean, we're talking about a federal law, federal judges ruling in New York. It seems to me in this particular case has to be ruled or viewed as reflecting the entire nation's laws. And you can't have conflicting decisions, conflicting rulings. But the fact is, I don't think any judge has has upheld Trump's executive order. So we don't even have a conflict at this point. There may be a federal judge, I may be wrong, but Politico and the New York Times don't say that. They don't say, yes, this judge in Texas has said that you're not a citizen even though you're born in the United States, even though you were born in Texas because of Trump's order. So maybe they're waiting for some kind of conflict between courts. Maybe they're waiting for an appeal by an American born to immigrants who now can't, isn't considered an American citizen. Maybe they're waiting for that person to bring the case before they rule. But the court itself hasn't ruled that birthright citizenship is no longer. They haven't ruled that. So it's just adds more confusion. Even my trying to explain it, obviously, it was confusing. But I think you understand what I'm saying. If a court in your state, that has jurisdiction over you, ruled that birthright citizenship is the law of the land, then it is. It's the law of your land, but it's not the law of the United States. That still is awaiting a final decision by the Supreme Court. And that decision may not come for some time. You'll need to have, and the court explained, maybe some kind of class action suit where a bunch of folks, who were born in the United States to immigrants now are challenging the executive branch's decision that they're not citizens. They might say, well, they're only like 5 weeks old, but you can have a class certified, even if it's for infants, even if it's for little children. Their parents can bring it on their behalf. There's all sorts of other factors. We'll have to wait for another day. My suspicion, I could be wrong, this is not a great court by any means. And if it was a court that was composed of Alitos and Thomases, I think Trump would get his wish and he would be able to deport U.S., born immigrants. I think he would be able to do that. But Amy Coney Barrett and the other two Trump justices, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, have been reasonable on occasion. Roberts has been reasonable, I think, on occasion. I think in the end, when they're forced to make a decision whether the president has the authority to revoke birthright citizenship, they'll probably say no, but I'm less certain of that than I was. Finally, I just want to say I understand the court's reasoning more generally, because what the court was saying is that district judges don't get to make nationwide rulings. They don't get to say, well, this decision in New York also applies in Arizona. And I'm directing that the federal government cannot revoke birthright citizenship anywhere. And they're saying that's not the case. And I kind of get it, because what the court seems to be concerned about is that, judges in one state, in one city, can completely shut down a federal government program. And some progressives have said that shouldn't be the case. An extreme right-wing judge in Mississippi shouldn't be able to stop courts in New York, shouldn't be able to prevent a California agency from helping poor people. And I can't give you all, a specific example of this, but I do understand that we've certainly had conservative justices who have issued nationwide injunctions against practices that I personally favor and believe should be considered constitutional. So it does make sense for the court to say, no, district judges cannot issue nationwide injunctions. In this case, district judges had issued nationwide injunctions against the repeal of birthright citizenship, saying, no, it doesn't matter where you are in this country, you're born here, period, you're a citizen, end of story. And they're saying you can't do that. You can't issue a nationwide injunction if you're a district judge. And I get that. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable. I just think in this particular case, the more important consideration is that we have a clear, bright line rule as to what being born in this country means. And I think it clearly means you're a citizen of the United States. All right, 240-242-5646. He says, Ari said that the Israeli government has issued shoot to kill orders at food distribution sites. I didn't think it went quite that far that they'd actually issued shoot to kill orders. Let me look that up, because that may be true. And wow, that, if to the extent that that is accurate, that would say to me, yeah, there were some cases anyway, according to The Intercept. I'm not sure exactly what were the specific factors in there, and let me go look. But yeah, there have been cases. I think it's wherever, it looks like the crowd of, starving people might be getting a little unruly, they are told to shoot at them. But it's no question it's a war crime. And it's terrifying. Yeah, Haaretz did report this. I really should have. I'm remiss. I will work on this, Ari, and try to get you more details Monday. It's unclear what exactly happened, and there is an investigation. Even Israel, I guess, can't quite avoid investigating the circumstances where 410 so far, at least minimum people have been killed trying to get food at Israeli-run aid sites. That's why you need UNRWA there. That's one of the most important reasons to have the United Nations doing this, because then you have independent international observers who can get will provide a more honest picture of what the genocidal Israeli military and government is doing. All right, 240-242-5646. And again, I've been asked, hey, what about your compassion for the Israeli people? You sure talk a lot about how bad things are for the Gazans, and you blame Israel, but what about the Israelis? And, Israelis aren't being shot trying to get food. They're not being starved to death. And then when they come together desperate for their children, they're not being shot. But those who have been victimized, mainly because of the actions of their own government, a government which most of them support, yeah, I feel bad for them. Sure. Okay. All right, 240-242-5646 if you want to join me. I think I explained kind of that birthright citizenship situation. I hope I did to people's satisfaction. Again, their court basically hasn't determined whether the president has the authority to end birthright citizenship. What they have determined is that those judges who rule on the legality of ending birthright citizenship can only rule in their rulings are only controlling in the areas where they have jurisdiction. And I get it. I understand the rule. I understand that, judges' authority only extends in, it's limited. A federal judge cannot order the entire government to do something or not to do something. That is true. And I understand that. But in this particular case, I think we all would have benefited from, and the right thing to do was to hold that no, the president doesn't have the authority to revoke birthright citizenship. That remains, that is the law of the land. Okay, this is really the question I wanted to kind of worry today, really wanted to discuss, wanted to focus on, although I'll take calls on anything. But does Mamdani's victory suggest it is possible to reform and reclaim the Democratic Party? And I think that's a really, really important question. It goes to this whole issue that I have been talking about, which is it's really time for Dem abandon. We need to elect people who are not beholden to this corrupt corporate party and who are not beholden to the backers, the funders of this corrupt corporate party, and who will not be swimming in the same waters as the sharks who infest the corrupt corporate Democratic Party. And we've seen so many examples of people who go into the Democratic Party or who win elections as Democrats who, at least at first blush, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, seem to have very good intentions. I know there are always questions about AOC. People now talk about this. Jen Perlman talks about this, that people who were in brand new Congress say, yeah, when we first met her, there was a few, she said she was just a bartender, but in fact, she had points in the bar. She was a partial owner of the bar, that she says, yeah, she presented herself as this working class representative, but she actually was kind of more of a manager of the bar as well as just a bartender. So there was a little skepticism about that. And then, of course, she has a degree. She's not just a blue collar, from a, high school grad type person. And she presents herself as an every woman. So there were those doubts raised. Now, look, I would say, maybe she had a small percentage of the bar. I don't really know all the details, but she was apparently working as a bartender to pay the rent. So she's blue collar. That's a blue collar job. So there's that. She did appear when she first got to Congress to be truly astonished, amazed that she now had health care. Like so many Americans, she didn't have any kind of comprehensive health insurance going into in her 20s until she became a congresswoman. So I'm willing to give her, she did camp out outside Nancy Pelosi's office to demand, I think it was a reduction in our consumption of fossil fuels, to demand a Green New Deal. And I think she was sincere. I don't know if I thought that was the most effective stunt. I think a better way to go about it is to push legislation to try to, I don't know if camping out outside it clearly in the end was not effective. That doesn't mean she was wrong to do it, but it wasn't effective. So there are, questions about the strategy maybe that she employed, but I think early on I'm willing to certainly give AOC the benefit of the doubt, but she has become a full-blown protector of a sheepdog for the Democratic Party. And that's an example of how you can't change the party from within, that we must go outside the party. Is that proof? Is the Bernie Sanders experience, somebody who endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016 rather than leading the charge for a Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, in 2016, is that proof that we cannot reform the Democratic Party from within? I wouldn't call it proof. I'd say it's pretty good evidence. I'd say it strongly suggests that this is not a party that is susceptible to any kind of positive change. Does Mamdani, the fact that he was able to win the primary prove the contrary, or even imply or suggest the contrary, that maybe we can reform and reclaim the Democratic Party? I'd say it does. I'd say it's a data point. We're going to have to wait. We're going to have to see what happens. Does he get elected? Is the Democratic Party establishment able to crush him, or neuter him, right? Maybe he wins, but he doesn't govern to the left. That's another possibility. So there are a lot of factors that might or might not, tell us whether we can change the party from within. My answer is, hey, you get somebody like a Mamdani who really is speaking a truly pro-worker rhetoric, who proposes truly pro-working class solutions that are just absolutely anathema to elites who hate him, who are doing everything to take him down. If there's somebody like that who's running in the Democratic primary, I'm saying that's good. Then let's promote that person, but let's also keep our hands on their throat. And we'll see. It's every day is a new day. It's not like we have some other strategy that we know works, right? I mean, the idea of building a third party, I've been very much in favor of it. I think we should do that. I think we should certainly not abandon the effort. But at the same time, when you've got somebody like Mamdani, who actually, I think, campaigned to the left of where AOC did, I think when you have that option, you'd be making a big mistake to just simply write him off and say there's no way he can make a difference, because we don't know that. And I think if he does, I'd say the other thing is, if Mamdani wins and becomes mayor and then promptly becomes a Wall Street apologist, kind of like an AOC, how AOC, not so much when it comes to Wall Street, but certainly when it comes to Israel, she interviews Holocaust Museum, keeps for the Israeli genocide, or she goes to the DNC and she tells us how great Kamala is. I think if Mamdani did that, it would really hasten what we've already seen as this rapid exodus away from the Democratic Party. Before we get to more on Mamdani, I do want to just talk about ways that we can make a difference. And I always, economic solutions. So here you see in Germany and across Europe now, more and more people are boycotting Israeli goods. And that's something I support. I buy stuff from Amazon. People say, well, you shouldn't do that. You should boycott Amazon. And maybe I should. But for me, it's more convenient to purchase from Amazon. It's quite a bit more convenient. I do support boycotting Israeli goods. I really try hard not to buy anything from Israel. If I see it's made in Israel, I won't buy it. I do sometimes buy kosher wine because sometimes for certain holidays, we observe kashrut. I won't buy Israeli wines now. So to the extent that you can say no to Israel, I think this really makes a difference. Now, there's the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, I guess, which is to sanction Israel for violating law. And I think we should sanction Israel. We should sanction Israeli leaders. I don't think divestment has much impact. I truly don't. If one investor pulls out, another one will almost certainly fill the void. And if if a business is profitable, then it will continue. But regardless of the investors. But a boycott, man, then you're taking away the money. Then you're really making a difference, and you're hurting people who have an ability, right? The farmers in Israel, the agricultural sector has power, has influence. If they see that the genocide committed by the Israeli military is hurting their bottom line, then that can really make a difference. So yeah, that's how we make a difference. Let me see. Is there any anti-BDS laws? I wonder if it's like, did I just violate the law? I'm not sure. I know there was a senator here, Senator Cardin, who promoted. I don't think they can do anything to me. They just say that state entities can't contract with businesses that boycott Israel. Maryland has anti-boycott legislation that restricts state entities from contracting with businesses that boycott Israel. Well, I don't have any state contracts, so there's no issue there. The question we ask, and I do want an answer. By the way, Ari, just real quick, Ari is just doing a heck of a job there in the comments in Facebook. What chances Mamdani have to win the mayoralty? I can expect Islamophobia or even Hamas attacks. Yeah, we've seen those already, Ari. In fact, I think somebody said 23 years ago, New York gets hit on 9/11, and now they elect a Muslim, or they nominate a Muslim. So you're going to hear that garbage, that crap. I think the odds are very good he wins. Again, I mean, we don't know what will happen. And yes, I do think there was a story in the Jewish Insider Jewish Insider is terrified that this guy could win. And they acknowledge it's going to be very, very tough to stop him. They said, yeah, first of all, they say if Cuomo does run, and it looks like he is, he's going to run on some workers' party that he created for the purpose of his parachute, right? His golden parachute. If I lose the Democratic primary, I'll run as an independent. So it looks like he's going to run. He will probably take many more votes away from Eric Adams and maybe Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, than he will take away from Mamdani. Obviously, most Democrats prefer Mamdani by a very significant margin to Cuomo. So I don't think, we have to worry that a lot of the Democratic electorate is going to vote for, is going to coalesce behind Cuomo. They don't like Cuomo. To the extent that there's an anti-Mamdani vote in the Democratic electorate, and there most certainly is, obviously, and I think most, clearly it's going to be the Orthodox Jewish community and Wall Street. But Wall Street, yes, is incredibly rich, has incredible influence, but it's not that sizable in terms of the total population. The big shot bankers, right? The big, the bankers who, are making the millions. There aren't that many of them. So their vote is still, they only get to vote once. Now they get to give a lot of money, but they only have one vote. So I think it's to Mamdani's benefit if Cuomo runs, because he and Eric Adams are fishing in the exact same pool. Orthodox Jews, impoverished black folks who don't see any real hope in any candidate, so they might just vote based on a big name. That's true. There are those folks, but I don't think they're numerous enough to stop Mamdani, even if Cuomo doesn't run. And remember, Adams is extremely unpopular. He's been discredited because of his, obvious corruption, taking money, taking bribes from the Turkish government, the incompetence of the administration. There have been many failings under Adams. So and also under Cuomo. So yeah, I think he wins. I mean, I don't know what odds I can give right now. I think it's very unlikely, to be perfectly honest with you, at this point, and it could change. Right now, I believe Zoran Mamdani will be the next mayor of the city of New York. I think in 2026, Zoran Mamdani will be your mayor. We spend a lot of time in this program, I do, trying to expose progressives, people who claim to speak for the leftists in the Democratic Party, who claim to speak for better policies to push the Democratic Party to the left, but really are more serving a function. Their function is more to keep people in the Democratic fold, no matter how bad the Democratic Party is. And I've been resistant to believe Robert Reich is that bad, right? I mean, I don't think he's quite as bad as some of the other folks I spotlighted, people like in the Our Revolution, the way Our Revolution jumped in front of the Mamdani train long after it had left the station to try to be conducted across the finish line or what have you. But I have to tell you, this was very, very disappointing, Robert Reich. And I know a friend of the Halitics co-host, Tuesday often co-host, Arlen is a big fan of Reich, and Reich often says the right thing. I don't deny it. But ultimately, deeds are what matter, not words. He was on Democracy Now! Yesterday. I want to go through this because I think it really does help us understand why the Democratic Party is where it is, why it's as bad as it is, and why I'm somewhat skeptical, or very skeptical, that Mamdani's victory is going to make any real change in the Democratic Party. Here's Reich on Democracy Now!
Was affordability. So if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you think this was the perhaps determining issue in this kind of surge towards Trump and the Republican Party in the last election.
Well, it's clear.
So basically, she's asking him about, how Mamdani won, and he focused on affordability, and that's how come Mamdani, by taking this important issue and really, really making it the centerpiece of his campaign, he was able to prevail. And she wants to know from him, because he wrote this book, Economy is Rigged. Okay, people see that life is becoming harder and harder. They've more and more challenges just paying for necessities of life. How did that play into Trump's election? And I think it's a really good question. Let's hear what he has to say.
Fooled the majority of Americans.
So it's Trump fooled people. So to me, that is such a condescending answer. First of all, I just want to say it's so condescending. The first thing he talks about is he fooled them, right? Now, the question was, how did unaffordability play into Trump's election? So what I would think the answer would be, well, let's face it, things have gotten really rough for people and they're looking for something different. And Trump provided that hope in his campaign that he would do something different. But instead, it's just they were fooled. People were fooled. If only they had known better, they would have voted for such stalwarts as Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. That's what Reich is saying. And no, it doesn't pass the smell test. It's very condescending. And it also he's utterly ignoring the blame that the Democratic elites, including Harris and Clinton, deserve for making life so hard for working people.
Into thinking that he would be their savior.
I don't think, again, this people think of Trump as the savior. I think they're looking for something a little bit better, a little bit different. Trump spoke very frequently about trade and how trade deals had hurt working people. He was always saying that. It was a major, major focus. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Now, Reich was against the free trade deals when he was in the Clinton administration. The Clinton administration said, F you, we're going to do them anyway because that's what our backers, our billionaire backers want. You'd think Reich would acknowledge that. Say, well, Trump actually spoke a pretty good game and really did address Americans' fears. And it's understandable, given their choices, why they might have gone to Trump. But again, it's just condescending. Oh, they were fooled. They're suckers. They're chumps.
Thing about prices. He would actually be responding to the needs of average working people. Now, he hasn't, obviously. He didn't in his first term. Remember, the major thing he did in his first term was a big tax cut, mostly for the rich. That's what he's doing now, again.
Well, that is true. It is true. And you could say, well, given that record, why did Americans vote for him? And again, the answer is because the Democrats gave them no reason whatsoever to believe things would be better under in a Democratic administration. Reich doesn't say that. He won't say that. He won't acknowledge the Democratic failings.
Big tax cut, mostly for the rich. But he uses the symbols of cultural populism, like immigration, to persuade a lot of people that he's on their side. Now, I'm not suggesting Democrats go in that direction. Quite the contrary. I think Democrats need to go in the direction of economic populism. They need to talk about the reality, and that is that wealth and income are really almost at a record level, moving to the top. And it is no accident. This is because of huge amounts of money spent in politics by big corporations and the wealthy. But what's wonderful, and I think Democrats really should take some solace from this, about the Mamdani's campaign is that you had the biggest war chest in modern American politics against him. You had Bill Clinton.
All right, so let me stop it there. So he's saying Democrats should take solace in the fact that, Bill Clinton campaigned against Mamdani. Bill Clinton, a Democrat. Why should Democrats take solace in that fact? Democrats opposed Mamdani. Why should they take any solace? It makes no sense. He's claiming Democrats should be pleased that Mamdani defeated big money. But Democrats have embraced big money. Kamala spent $1.5 billion and lost to Trump. This is not something for them to take solace in. They have embraced the billionaire class and betrayed workers time and again, year after year, decade after decade. Reich had a front seat to all of this. So I don't know why he thinks Dems would take solace. This is the opposite of what Democrats want. Democrats want big money to win. Maybe Mamdani doesn't. Maybe many Democratic voters don't want big money to win. But the fact is that the Democratic Party itself loves big money, is totally beholden to big money. The leadership of the party wants the big money interests to win. And so there's no way they're going to be pleased when big money doesn't win. Very, very, very strange in my world that this is somehow considered, insightful by Reich, or that this somehow reflects his correctness on issues. If he wanted to, promote Mamdani and urge that we have policies like Mamdani, he wouldn't frame it as though, well, this is a winning strategy. He would say this is the right thing to do. This is the moral thing to do. Oh, and by the way, it is good politics. But even if it weren't always good politics, you should do it anyway. Because what Democrats have done, no less than what Republicans have done, has been devastating, incredibly destructive to the American public. And so I find, Reich very, very disappointing here, because he's failed yet again to acknowledge the Democratic complicity in the terrible place we are now. All right, let's play a little bit more. Let's play here. This is Amy Goodman giving her encomium, an encomium that I think is wholly undeserved to Reich.
Glass is premiering this weekend at the IFC, but you are coming at, to say the least, an extremely significant moment in New York's history, in the country's history. You endorsed Mamdani. You endorsed Sorta Mamdani early on. That is certainly. All
right, let me stop it right there. So the argument, what Amy Goodman just says there, and I'm just, it's obvious what she said. She said, you endorsed Zoran Mamdani early on. Now, this tracks completely with what I was wondering about when it comes to our revolution, because our revolution said they had endorsed Mamdani, right? And they endorsed Mamdani after early voting had started. I think their endorsement was on the 17th of June, 1 week, precisely 1 week before the election. So I hardly saw that as like this major endorsement, or that something that they should be proud of. Like, oh, we saw this in advance. We figured it out. We endorsed Mamdani. We were behind him. We helped promote Mamdani. And then we hear from Amy Goodman how Robert Reich endorsed Mamdani early. Right. So again, you're ahead of the curve. You like Mamdani showed some real leadership here, Reich. You went up against the Democratic establishment. And I was really surprised to hear her say that, because I had looked into this. I really wanted to know, because, Reich is really good as a scold and always giving advice, and people should do this and the party needs to do that, and Trump is so bad. And I thought, well, the best advice you can give people is to vote for the most progressive candidates, especially when they're, apparently, at least appear to be really, truly campaigning against the elites in both parties, taking on the Democratic leadership class. And that's what Zoran Mamdani was doing. So when I heard Amy Goodman, and when I heard Reich do this, in various articles and things, and scolding people and telling them that, well, how could you fall for Trump, these chumps who vote for Trump, instead of, you got to get out in the streets. We need you to boycott. We need you to stop traffic or what have you. I thought, well, that's all well and good, but hey, we've got a really important election coming up in the largest city in the country and the most important city in the world. Why aren't you out there telling people to vote for Zoran Mamdani? That is meaningful. And I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. This was maybe a week or two ago, after I had endorsed him on, what was it, the 7th, I believe. So Amy Goodman says, oh no, Reich, you endorsed him early on. Early on, this is the date. This was when he endorsed him. Unless I missed something, and I certain I didn't. I looked everywhere. The first public endorsement by Robert Reich of Zoran Mamdani was June 20th of this year. The election was June 24th. 4 days before the actual election day is when Reich comes out. Long after. This is 3 days after our revolution's very tardy endorsement. That's how bad, that's how slow Reich was. He came to the party 3 days after our revolution did. June 20th, our early voting had been going on for almost a week at that point. More than maybe a full week. And Amy Goodman's like, oh yeah, you endorsed him early. I mean, what a ridiculous, complete nonsense. This kind of back scratching and, promoting each other among these, I guess, progressive Democrats is so upsetting. Remember how Amy Goodman cut off Jill Stein when she interviewed Jill Stein, when she was like, oh, aren't you helping Trump? And isn't Harris better than Trump? And, aren't you really, people say that you're a Russian asset. How do you respond to them? That's the Amy Goodman we see here. The one who's smiling and smirking about how great Reich is. And it's kind of stomach churning, to be perfectly honest with you. It really is. It's very, very upsetting. And again, we don't have institutions that we can trust. It's the bottom line. We don't have institutions that are on our side that are going to fight for us. And this is just one more example of that. It's quite clear. And for her to say, oh yeah, you were there from the beginning. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. We need something a little better than what you're, presenting us with, Robert Reich. All right, let's see if we can get a little more of Reich here. I wanted to get him. I think there's one more segment here that we'll see if we can get it. where he talks about the party learning its lesson.
Was affordability. So if you could
I'll
elaborate.
jump ahead of that.
If there's not a lesson here about people rising, demanding what they want and what they need, and a new generation of Democrats rising, talking to people authentically about what they need, I don't know what the lesson is.
So, I mean, we want to,
So he says, yeah, this is, a lesson. This is how we win. But he ignores, as always, right? The lesson is we have to, and I agree with this, we have to unite in support of good candidates like Zoran Mamdani. But what he ignores is that that's a lesson the Democratic Party is completely resistant to, that the Democratic Party will never learn, the Democratic Party will never acknowledge, because it conflicts directly with their own selfish best interests. It conflicts with their ability to raise money from the billionaire class. Billionaire class ain't going to get money. They don't care blue, red, green. They don't care. If you're not going to give them tax breaks, if you're not going to let them have free reign, if you're not going to support, quote, free, unquote, trade, then they're not going to help you. They're not going to give you money. It's all transactional. They don't care about what's best for the American people. So Kathy Hochul, I'm not ready to endorse Zoran. I need to talk to him about his policy ideas. I don't believe in taxing the rich. So that's your Democratic governor. And Crystal Ball, who also lacks a lot of credibility, frankly. Remember how Crystal Ball, we exposed her and Kyle, her husband, there when they went after Cenk, because Cenk said we should talk to Republican voters. We should talk to MAGA. And she went absolutely crazy. She went bonkers. Oh no, only pressure from Democrats can change Trump. Well, here's your Democrat, Hochul. Here's your Democrat, Ball. Hochul, she's your Dem. And look at her. She will not endorse Mamdani. And she even says, Crystal Ball even says, the voters endorsed him and it was overwhelming what happened to vote blue no matter who. Right. Hochul's a hypocrite. Hochul's a phony. Hochul's corporatist. But somehow people who vote for her in your world are worth talking to. They're somehow morally superior to those knuckle draggers who vote MAGA. It's crazy. The Democratic Party is morally and intellectually bankrupt, just like the Republicans. Yeah, Mamdani's that one shining exception, and the entire party is uniting, trying to eject him, trying to bodily, send him out of them like he's refuse. That's what your Democratic Party, that you think Crystal Ball is the only voters for Democrats should be even spoken to, should even be acknowledged. So I guess people who vote for Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who instead of saying, yes, Mamdani has great ideas, it's obvious he's resonating with the voters in New York City in a way that most Democrats can't. Democrats who went over to Trump in significant numbers in New York City. Young men who have embraced Mamdani. Young white men who have embraced Mamdani. And those are voters we've been losing. Instead of praising him, instead of supporting him, she simply repeats tired, dishonest, Zionist, Islamophobic tropes. Oh, this intifada. Oh my, you use the word struggle against Israel as though that's a good thing. That's your Democratic Party. They're not, I don't know. Can they be reformed? Only if the entire leadership is voted out. And how's that going to happen? They're circling the wagons against Mamdani. So there's Dem reps, Swozey and Gillen, distance themselves. We're not socialists. We don't want everyone to have health care. We don't want to have grocery stores and food deserts. We don't want affordable housing for the people. You can't make this stuff up. And these are just, it's a bad party with bad people. That's just It's just that simple. It's a bad party with bad people is your Democratic Party. Now, there's one good person. He just won the New York Democratic primary, and the party's doing every single thing it can to stop him, to crush him, and they're going to continue to do it. Nate Silver, I think I highlighted this yesterday. Zorn delivered to the Democratic establishment the thrashing it deserved. I agree, but he doesn't make the point, just as Reich doesn't, that the real reason the Democratic Party is, persona non grata, is anathema, that a Democratic elite, Democratic establishment can't get elected dog catcher in most of the country, is because they're corrupt, because they're the billionaire party, just as the Republicans are now. You might say, well, no, it isn't. The problem in place in red states is that they're too pro-immigrant, or they're perceived as too pro-immigrant, or they're pro-trans rights, or what have you. And I agree. That hurts them. That hurts them because red state voters recognize that when it comes to economics, both parties are against them. When it comes to cost of living increases, neither party is on their side. When it comes to protecting American laborers from cheap foreign workers, the Democrat Party is, if anything, worse. At least Trump's saying we should have tariffs. Democrat Party is even worse when it comes to protecting American blue-collar workers. When it comes to trying to keep wages just a tiny bit higher by keeping out, quote, illegals, unquote, which I think is a terrible policy. I think we should be very welcoming to people from other countries. But the fact of the matter is that whenever you raise the supply of anything, you drive down its cost. More immigrants means more workers, which means they get to charge less for their labor. So when it comes to immigration, American workers recognize that the Republican Party policy may be cruel, policy, may be inhumane, but I need to pay the rent. And when I'm trying to get a job as a house painter, I have to drop my rates to, $12 an hour. And I have to pay for my own paint because otherwise, an operation, a gray market operation that's staffed by undocumented workers is going to undercut me, and I can't get even that job. So on many issues, the Democrat Party is even worse for working people. And on other issues, there's not really much daylight between them. So who can be surprised that working class voters have turned against the Democrats? But you don't hear that. It's never. And it's certainly not from Reich, right? Oh, Trump fooled these chumps into voting for him. So arrogant, this elite college professor, to say that. Gee, what a surprise that so many Americans hold these folks in contempt. And, Silver got it. Yes, the establishment deserved it. They ran a tired, entitled candidate. People had had enough. And it's clear, that because of the, if nothing else, the turnout, how Zoran appealed to so many people. But that said, Silver can only go so far. His explanations, while I think capture the reality, Cuomo ran a terrible campaign. That's true. Mamdani is a very talented candidate. There is, and here's where he gets the policy, which is true, there is an appetite for leftist candidates if they emphasize cost of living issues rather than the culture wars. And I think it's not just cost of living. He doesn't want to, healthcare. Every American needs healthcare, very big. And you say rather than the culture wars, well, I think Mamdani was very smart the way he said, no, I'm not going to go to Israel. I'm going to focus on New York. But it depends on the culture issue. If it's a culture issue that's embraced by the billionaire elites like Israel, like supporting Ukraine wars, then that's not popular. And progressives and leftists should run against as quickly and as hard as they can any kind of pro-war, pro-military solution. Immigration is a tough issue, you have to figure it out. It's a tough one. You have to, because as I've mentioned, we want to side with people, with human beings. We want to have a humane immigration policy, but immigrants do drive down wages for American workers. That is a fact. So you have to address both realities. And then Silver points out that the Democratic establishment is out to lunch with much of its backing Cuomo and obviously flawed Kennedy. They're not out to lunch. They're not out to lunch, Silver. They don't like Mamdani's policies. They're totally fine with Cuomo's corruption, his sexual harassment. That's not a problem for them. They don't care. They vote based on what's best for them, for their pocketbooks, for their wallets. And the last thing that Chuck Schumer wants, that Hakeem Jeffries wants, that Nancy Pelosi wants, that Bill Clinton wants, the last thing they want is lots of truly leftist candidates who are demanding, who are going to legislate for working people. We're going to legislate much higher tax increases on them, who are going to say, no, you can't trade stocks if you're an elected office. That's what they don't want. So they weren't out to lunch. They're just terrified that they're going to lose their lunch, that Mamdani and his people will eat their lunch. They're not afraid of AOC. AOC, I think, had some doubts even whether to endorse him. She took a very long time to as well. Final, before we go, let me just give you this one last little, I guess this is on Blue Sky, because I guess Reich doesn't use X, I don't think. So 2 days ago, Dems cannot win back working class voters by putting forth more corporate-backed politicians. There's a better path forward. It's one paid by leaders like Mamdani, who stand up to the oligarchy and fight to make life affordable for working people. So I want to say what Reich is doing there. As much as you might say, oh, that's a really good Blue Sky, right, or tweet, or whatever you want to call it, X, whatever, it really isn't. Because what does Reich center? He centers winning. He centers Democrats winning. Just as he centered in that interview with Democracy Now!, Trump winning. Trump wins by fooling voters. It's not about what's the best policy. It's not about making life better for the American public. It's not about respecting working people and the terrible choices that they've made. It's not about the Democrats should embrace pro-labor, pro-peace, pro-environment policies because that's what's best for the American public. Not at all. Reich is saying, well, they can win. What we need to do is win. And the problem with that argument, there's so much wrong with it, but one of the biggest problems with that argument is what happens when people say, and they just say it all the time, and I hear this all the time, oh no, it's not going to matter. People don't vote based on issues. People don't care about, they're not listening. They're not, if people voted based on issues, they would have voted for Hillary because she's better than Trump, obviously. And Reich fed right into that by saying, well, Trump won by fooling people. So your argument isn't that Democrats should do the right thing because it's the right thing. Oh, and by the way, it's really good politics. Your argument is just like, well, this is good politics, so they should do it. What we need to do at every moment is promote the best policies for the American people and for the world. And Reich isn't really doing that here. Reich said, I don't have the quote here, I wish I did, but one thing he said that really frustrated me on Democracy Now! Was, we're not going to get a third party. There's no time. American people aren't going to support a third party. Well, what I don't understand, Reich, is you're not trying to lead us to support a third party. You caped for Hillary. You said she'd be a great president. You said that about Harris. Why didn't you recognize these are not great people, that their policies hurt Americans, that their policies are exactly why Donald Trump is president? and that we must go in a different direction. Until you do that, I'm not listening to you. I mean, you're smart, you're a professor, you write well. So I'll engage in your arguments, but I don't feel like you deserve to be given some kind of special status the way Chris Hedges does, the way a Shama Sawant does. You've gotten as much wrong as you've gotten right. And we need to be right a lot more often. And the way you're right, you vote for progressive, true leftists, people who have demonstrated time after time that they're going to stand up against the oligarchs, the billionaires, and for working people. And they're not going to defend terrible policies the way AOC does, the way Bernie sometimes does. I'll be back Monday. Monday's going to be a Carlos Monday. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Enjoy your weekend.